Hello, and welcome to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit.
It's a universal truth that people love to feel special. We all want to feel like we're an indispensable part of something. It's also true that each and every one of us has limitations on our time, money, and attention. So with these conflicting realities somehow coexisting, how can we as nonprofiteers interact with our supporters and constituents on a personal level while not draining them of all of their resources? Caitlin Bond, nonprofit email marketing expert and consultant to organizations like the Trevor Project, UNHCR, and Amnesty International, has more than a few tactics to share with our Nonstop Nonprofit listeners. As nonprofit fundraisers, you and I are used to feeling the pressure to perform. It's not uncommon for us to be told that without donations, literally our jobs, by the way, our world would be a darker, sharper place. Caitlin's antidote emphasizes speaking up during quieter moments, making magic happen in the harsh light of a screen, and elevating everyone's experience through innovation. So whether you're in the thick of your busiest time of the year, or you're a year in advance planner, Caitlin's advice in this episode will help you use email to scale impact, retain donors, align your communications, and grow your revenue, all while reminding you that you too are essential to our brighter tomorrow.
It is your number one priority to ensure that your business can continue to deliver on its mission, whether it's this year, next year, and beyond.
So we're creating this inclusive environment, building between diverse communities to ensure that our young people can thrive.
I'm always so baffled when I do webinars. There's always somebody at the end who raises their hand and says, I'm the development director. Should I have access to the budget? I'm always like, yes, you've got to know that.
The best thing you can ever do as a nonprofit leader is spend as much money as possible on your story.
Then you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
That is unacceptable, and that is not the way to run a board.
The best thing that we can do is just raise as much money as possible and then give it to the people around the world.
If you're going to be sustainable, you have to have a multi-channel strategy to reach all of these different generations of donors however they want to be reached.
One of the principal values that we carry as an organization is to lift grace over guilt. And we believe that grace is the greatest agent for change that anyone can ever experience.
We all need each other in terms of other nonprofits working together to solve things.
The more nonprofits can give their donor base that experience of the impact that's being made on the ground level, there's nothing else that you have to give someone. This is Nonstop Nonprofit.
Caitlin, thank you again for joining us today. I am so excited to dig into all things email and digital with you. This is probably my favorite slice of the nonprofit world, specifically fundraising. I can't wait to dig in and share your thoughts and your expertise with our audience. But before we get too far into it, I just want to ask you, can you share a little bit about your background? What brought you into the nonprofit sector? What do you do at KB Digital? And then within that, how did email become your sweet spot?
Thank you so much for having me, David. I've listened to your podcast for a while, so I'm so honored that you have me on it. I started my career doing digital marketing for tech companies. And I wanted to take what I learned and really apply it to something more meaningful. And that's when I made the move to the nonprofit sector. In typical nonprofit form, I wore very many hats for a long time, doing social, web, email, digital advertising, really all of the things. But what I noticed was that email was what was moving the needle the most, especially for the smaller nonprofits that I worked at, when it came to donor retention and fundraising. So that's when I started noticing, I was doing all this work, spending so many hours on social, but most of what was moving the needle was email. And that's what I enjoyed doing the most as well. So this year, I actually honed in my consulting services on email marketing, and I help medium to large nonprofits with their email production. So everything from creating the strategy to executing and reporting on those emails, and also doing some email audits on their programs altogether. So looking at their email programs and telling them, what they're doing well, what they could improve on, and where, they could make those improvements to either meet their goals of fundraising or increasing funds or, making a bigger impact.
In that same light, specifically email. If you followed me or you've listened to me for any amount of time, you know I love email. I think it's like the hidden gold mine for every nonprofit everywhere. But what is it about email specifically that I can ask it this way, because I know like when people like email, they love email. What is it about email that you fell in love with?
Well, if you think about it, people are giving you their email address and saying, I want to hear from you via email. And if you do a survey, all the surveys that I've done with nonprofits that I've worked with their donors, they're saying they want to hear from the nonprofits by email. So people are telling us, and there's actually studies out there that prove that people prefer to be communicated with via email, that people want to hear from us via email. So email, it doesn't feel very intrusive like sometimes social media can or digital advertising can. People are giving you their email saying, use this, reach out to me. So I love that part of it. Allows you to connect and nurture with your donors or subscribers or just people that care about your mission. And that's the main reason why I love it. On top of that, it has the highest ROI. So you can send out, a message to a mass email, one to many, and reach a lot of people at one time. And especially with these organizations who are addressing emergencies, you don't have to get a letter printed out and sent via snail mail. You can actually reach out to people right away for support and to update them. And I love that about email as well. And then the third thing is you own your list. So your email list is very valuable. These are people that you can connect with, and the email list grows over time, and you always have those email addresses. You always have them. Whereas on social media, if Meta had some, huge emergency and closed down tomorrow.
Not that they would ever do anything, right, to change their standards.
Exactly. You have no way to reach out to people. So I'm not saying that the other tactics are not important, other platforms are not important. I'm just saying that I love email, and I think it's a big part of your marketing strategy that should not be neglected.
I think you touched on the thing that is probably my favorite piece, and it's when you look at email in light of an omni-channel campaign. I actually got my career started in direct mail fundraising. It's a little known fact about me that I try to keep hidden, but I still have a lot of friends in direct mail, and they always give me a hard time because, I spent a lot of time on the agency side, and their direct mail packages always had like a 2 or 3 times higher ROI than my email did. And I'm like, well, that's because you have 100,000 people on your direct mail list, and I have 5,000 people on my email list. Let me invest in email for the next 20 years like you did with direct mail, and we'll catch up. But what I love about email is that you can respond in real time. And I've worked with organizations, and what I love is that email gives you the chance to be in front of your donors and make a real-time impact in things that are critical. So I remember working with an organization right at the start of COVID. Nobody in the world knew what to expect. And they knew their direct mail campaign had been planned out for 90 days ahead. So they're like, well, we can change what we say in June. But like our email campaign stopped and changed that day. Right. And same with when Ukraine was invaded, we were able to stop, pivot, change, create an entirely new communication strategy and show people how they could help people in real time. And you can have like that immediate, it's almost like immediate gratification. And I joke I couldn't make it in direct mail because I have too short of an attention span. But that's what I love about email, and is the ability to move in real time.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. My dad owns a direct mail print shop. And so we often argue about
That's
this
awesome.
too, because I'm digital and he's direct mail. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that stop doing direct mail, because we know direct mail works as well. And with COVID, we know that everything has sped up technologically and advanced so quickly that eventually we know what the future is. Okay. The future is email. And so let's move in that direction and invest some money and resources in email, I think.
I agree. You gave me a perfect chance here on the subject of investing in email, are there any tools that you've used that you can like add on to different emails? So like things like help you build HTML files or design tools or other things you've used to help you maybe like segment audiences or different things like that that you really like that you bring with you anytime you take on a new email project?
Yeah, so for QA, I use email on Acid. So, as some of us know, there are just so many different ways that people can view emails. So, they can view it on their phone, their desktop, their tablet. They can view it on Outlook. They can view it on Gmail. And there's so many different email clients, Yahoo. And there's different also operating systems. So, your email is going to look different to everybody. And so, you want to make sure that you're looking at how it's going to be presented to your audience, no matter what device or email service provider they have. So, email on Acid will allow you to actually like copy and paste the HTML of your email, put it in there, and test it and see how it looks on like 100 different views. So, I always use that before I send an email. List cleaning. That's really important too. There's a software called Neverbounce that you can actually copy and paste your files into there to see what emails are valid and not valid and clean up your list through running it through that product. And that's a really great tool to use. And then when it comes to campaign reporting, you always want to use UTM tracking. So you can tell where traffic is coming to your website from. So tracking, if people are clicking from email and going to your donation form or your website, then you can track actually that entire conversion and the journey that they are going through to get to that form or to get to that place. And that's really important for you to be able to tell how your campaign is performing. And so using UTM tracking, Google Analytics is really great too for tracking. And so those are kind of three of the ones that I always use. Do you have any that you would suggest that I didn't mention?
No, I think those are great. I don't usually do much outside of what's baked into platforms. I also I've been lucky enough to use more of the robust platforms that have the campaign analytics, the built-in A/B testing, the built-in segmentation, things like that. So, but I think it is, if your system doesn't allow you to do that, you need a tool like you're talking about to help you QA and make sure your emails look right, to make sure your lists are clean and segmented, and make sure you're tracking and analyzing performance. Otherwise, you don't know how it's working. I will say one thing on QA, though, QA meaning quality assurance, is I often have to remind people, don't be paralyzed by an email not looking right in one of the views. Because I remember I worked with a client one time, they wouldn't approve an email until every single server system view looked great. And I said, you guys, you have to remember, there is no one on your list looking at an email on a mobile device on Outlook 97 anymore. And like they would get hyper fixated on the fact that like, hey, it doesn't look right here, or this button's out of place, or this, it's not text reference. I'm like, yes, but also let's keep in mind that the bulk of your audience are looking at it on iPhone and in Mail or Gmail on an Android device, or one of those two functions on a desktop. That's where the bulk of your audience is. Most people are using a personal email. Most people are using their personal device when they look at it. There's going to be a handful of people on Outlook, and anyone who has designed emails knows how Outlook traditionally throws everything out of whack. But I always say, make sure you're doing the most amount of your work that's going to pay off to the most amount of people. So focus on, also know where your audience is, right? It's part of that list cleanliness. Know what devices people are on, know when and where and why and how people are looking at your emails. So that way you can focus as much of your time and effort on making that a great experience. And then for the, like, where you do have time, optimize for as much as you can around that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we get paralyzed by perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect as much as, we want it to be. Don't let that stop you from hitting send.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked tools, and we say a lot here at Fundraisers is you need to have good strategy before you go and get good tools, because tools just accelerate. If you're doing well, they make you do better faster. But if you're not doing things the right way, it accelerates frustration. So I want to talk a little bit more strategy here and like let you share some of the strategies that you've implemented over time that you really like, that you've been able to scale with good technology.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the number one, really, I wouldn't say mistake, but I would say missed opportunity that I've seen with nonprofits is just they're very focused on these fundraising campaigns year round, which are important, don't get me wrong. But if you're not touching base with these people based off of who they are, what they're interested in, showing them the impact of their dollars, you are not going to retain them. And it's much cheaper to retain a donor than it is to acquire a new donor. So, really focusing on in between those fundraising campaigns, how are you elevating the experience? How are you making connections? How are you showing the impact? And keeping these people around and keeping them interested and connected and making them want to be evangelists for your organization and for your mission. And so when we talk about strategy, I want people to look at, your calendar year, like where are these campaigns and what are you doing in between those campaigns to keep the momentum going? So while the fundraising campaigns are very important, and those are the campaigns that you have a specific theme for, you have a goal, which is usually to raise funds, and you're really tracking like the donations coming in, thinking about how are you like warming people up and keeping the ball rolling in between those. And automation is a really great tool to do that. And so there are ways that you can automate emails in between those pivotal tentpole campaigns that you have, that the goal is to really retention and warming people up for that next ask. And that can be a difficult goal because I think as fundraisers, we want to see the dollars, and there's not always dollars coming in between. Like, biggest mistake I see is people running these big campaigns and then they're wondering why they're not hitting their goals. And the reason is because you're going dark and then you're asking, and then you're going dark and then you're asking. And so the strategy should be one that's holistic in a way that you're touching base with people in between that time. And automation is the best way to do that. And segmenting your list and personalizing those emails based off of who the people are. So, for example, if they're a donor, a one-time donor that knows nothing about your organization, it's a great practice to have a welcome series in place to tell them about your organization, share some stories of impact, and letting them know that their dollars have actually been used or are going to be used to do X, Y, and Z. And so automation and segmentation, I think, are the two biggest ways that you can use technology and tools to really scale and see that return on your investment.
Yeah, you definitely touched on something I think is one of the most underutilized features of email marketing today for fundraisers and nonprofiteers is automation. In that we're really good in this sector at having stories and telling stories and proving impact and creating a reason for support. But like there's only so much time, resource allocation we have to telling those stories. And when we finally learn the type of stories or the angles or the positioning that works really well, automation allows us to share that story at scale. And you can, as your list grows, your effort doesn't have to grow alongside it. And that's something that we've implemented here at Fundraise that I think is such a critical feature, is as people take different steps or actions or reach different milestones in their support journey with an organization, we have built-in automations that say, hey, this is this person's first gift to your organization. Here's a pre-built new donor welcome series. Automatically fires, automatically triggered. You don't have to think about it. Or, hey, this person just gave their 5th gift in the last 6 months. They're a good candidate for a sustainer conversion. Automatically trigger that sustainer conversion series. Or it's the end of the year. It's time to send your annual receipt. Go in and write your annual report, and then assign your audiences and send it, right? Use those types of automations and those systems to help you communicate and distribute content and your stories without having to think about it. That's when organizations see that rapid, hockey stick style growth. And now, enjoy this break from your friends at Fundraise, the nonprofit industry's most innovative fundraising platform.
Fundraise provides exceptional, innovative, and friendly fundraising technology focused on nonprofit growth. Made for fundraisers by fundraisers, our state-of-the-art platform integrates every core aspect of front and back-end fundraising management into a convergent platform perfect for nonprofiteers like you. Every day, we celebrate nonprofits like UNHCR and National Wildlife Federation as they trust Fundraise to power fundraising campaigns around the world. Warning, we go through a lot of confetti. Get started raising the funds and the fun at fundraise.org. That's funraise.org.
Now that you've heard how Fundraise can level up your fundraising game, let's get back to the conversation. So, Caitlin, we've talked a little bit, 30,000 foot view of platforms and tools and strategies. But I want to bring us really, really tactical for the next little bit here because, Giving Tuesday is just a few days away. When done right is the launching point into year-end fundraising. We've already shown and talked about how email, digital specifically, but digital as a whole, but email specifically is the workhorse during this season. I want to talk about building successful Giving Tuesday and year-end campaigns because I know you have a wealth of experience here and you've done it over and over and over. So I'm gonna start just on behalf of our audience. I'm gonna solicit some tips from you on building the Giving Tuesday and year-end fundraising campaigns. And so the first question I have is about content because content is still king, right? What content makes for a successful Giving Tuesday and year-end campaign?
So when it comes to Giving Tuesday, you need to decide what your goal is. Some organizations, the goal is fundraising, but some organizations, the goal is this is going to kick off our fundraising season. So maybe it's not fundraising, maybe it's warming people up for that next month where you are going to be asking a lot. So decide kind of what your goal is, and then you can build the content from there. When it comes to Giving Tuesday, I think, I suggest sending 4 emails, one prior to the week, and usually that's Thanksgiving week. And so we get a lot of emails in our inbox Thanksgiving week, but this is a great time to thank your donors, express gratitude, and not even make an ask in this email. This is like, thank you for making our work possible. Because of you, we've been able to do X, Y, and Z, just expressing a little bit of gratitude. And then the next week on Giving Tuesday, I would send 2 emails on the day, one in the morning. That's like today's Giving Tuesday. It does not have to be a long email. People know what Giving Tuesday is. We hope that you will consider us as your charity of choice on this National Day of Giving, and maybe a little blurb about what the dollars are going to enable us to do. And then one in the evening that is more of a last chance, like urgent, more sense of urgency, and really just 2 emails on Giving Tuesday. You don't need to overdo it. People know what it is. They're getting a million emails in their inbox. Get creative. You don't have to say, the subject line doesn't have to say like, today is Giving Tuesday, give to Giving Tuesday. It can be more creative than that. So I would just urge you to not, focus too much on that being, your big point of interest in your emails. And then the day after, thanking people, showing them kind of the impact, letting them know how many dollars you raised. If you decide you want to share that, I don't think it's necessary. But really thanking people and telling them how you plan to use their donations and what they've made possible. Lots of donor-centric language, more you, less I, so less about your organization and what you're doing and more about the donor and what they've made possible. That works really well. And then when you're jumping into year end, I want people to think of this like this is a campaign. So it's not just putting a bunch of emails and social media posts and schedule it, like creating a bunch of emails and social media posts. You actually need to have a theme, a strategy, goals, and KPIs. So sit down and think about what this is going to look like, and how you're going to make it a cohesive strategy, cohesive campaign, and how you're going to launch it in that way. Lots of stories of impact. People really, really resonate with stories. So if there's any way that even if you can go directly to the source of the people you're helping and have them write a little, letter to the donors, I think that's a great way to really like switch the narrative and show kind of what your work firsthand is doing. That's going to perform really, really well. So those are kind of some tips that I have, but it's up to your organization, I think, and what your goals are, and knowing what works well for your donors. Like, don't be afraid if you're a small nonprofit, don't be afraid to like go back through your metrics. I did this for one of my clients, went back through their newsletters and their emails to see what people clicked on the most that year and what they were engaged with, what the topic was. And we just repurposed that. We maybe updated it. And so it doesn't have to be brand new content, but I would just urge you to put some thought into it before creating that content.
My next question, Caitlin, you kind of touched on it already, but is about cadence, and specifically how much is too much email during this season?
That's funny. Everyone wants to know how many emails is too many emails. You can never send enough emails, in my opinion.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
I mean, more emails. We're not sending enough emails. People want more emails. There's studies out there that prove that people are saying, we want to hear from you more. I bet you if you send a survey to your donors and your supporters, they will say, we want to hear from you more. So more emails that are relevant, valuable, resourceful emails. Even if it's just a short email, I think we get really caught up in like making these long, complicated emails that need to go through like several reviews. Just take, whatever you wrote on social media, maybe draw it out a bit, add some more detail to it. It doesn't need to be this very long email. I mean, people spend like 90 seconds looking at an email. They want to read at a fourth grade reading level. So just like keep it simple, but they want to hear from you more. And so don't get caught up in these like complicated emails that you're sending out.
I always have pushback on this topic because like I have a very firm stance that, like you said, we're not sending enough, right? And I get the question, well, how much is too much? And I said, well, until you run out of something relevant to say, you're not saying enough. And you probably have room to send more. And like I'll put a comp plan together and I'll go, okay, we'll send 2 to 3 emails a month during the regular years. And then as we get into the season, we'll ramp that up to 3 to 4 emails, sometimes a week, at least 4 or 5 emails a month, some weeks 3 to 5 emails a week. And people get really worried when you're like, I'm over communicating, I'm over talking, but then we bring it home, right? Where I say, okay, pull out your phone, look at your inbox, look for Gap. How many emails do you have from Gap in the last 24 hours?
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you're telling a better story, more relevant to your donors than Gap, but you're only telling them once a month. No wonder they're not paying attention.
It just drives me crazy because we're saving the world,
right?
And we're afraid to tell people about it. I mean, people want to know. We're doing really good work. My clients are doing amazing work, and yeah, I mean, people want to hear about it. They're telling you they want to hear about it. And let me tell you, if this is something that it comes up with every single client, go into your analytics, tell me how many people are unsubscribing. Like, are people marking you as spam? Because you can tell that. And if they are, then yes, let's talk about it more. I don't think it's the quantity of emails. I think it's probably the quality or even the people that you're sending to, that could be a good flag of like relevancy to segments. But yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I am suggesting I put together this resource for year end Giving Tuesday, and what I'm suggesting is that people send 12 emails from Giving Tuesday to year end. And that's minimum. I would love to see double that, but minimum 12 emails. And I can send you that resource too. It has templates with prompts and segmentation information in it for Giving Tuesday to year end. But 12 emails is kind of the sweet spot that I'm suggesting. But I've worked with nonprofits that have sent up to 30 emails for each campaign. So
yeah, it's so important you talk about like those leading metrics, indicators of engagement and when you're crossing that threshold. Specifically, like you said, unsubscribe and spam, like those two metrics, those rates are really, really, really good indicators of whether you're over communicating. And I would challenge every person listening to find that threshold, because like I've taken organizations where we've ramped 300% in volume of emails and decreased unsubscribe rate at the same time. You are not over communicating. In fact, you're not communicating enough, and you're leaving a significant amount of revenue on the table, which means you're leaving impact on the table by being too afraid to push the bounds of what you think is comfortable. And I think that is such a critical thing as we go into Giving Tuesday and into year end. Is this is our time. This is everyone listening. This is your time to be bold, send an extra email, do something a little bit different, and push the bounds, because now is when you're going to see the biggest return.
Yeah. And I also have to say that if that is something that's in your mind that you're worried about, you can actually add to your subscription preferences, I would like to receive fewer emails, so that people can say to you, I want to receive fewer emails. Or you can go in and even list out kind of like, if you have, event updates, you have like press releases or organizational updates, like allow them to choose kind of what they want and what they don't want. They can opt out of fundraising emails if they don't want that. That's okay. So instead of just stopping communicating altogether, think of ways that you can gather more information or data to prove that point before you make that decision.
Well, yeah, and case in point here, I remember working with an organization, and they were very apprehensive with who they included in fundraising emails. And that's fair. They wanted to respect their donors. They wanted to respect who they asked. But we challenged them. It's like, okay, we'll be really respectful with your fundraising appeals, but your newsletter, send it to everyone. Who doesn't like to receive a newsletter? Their newsletter netted 10 times more revenue than their average fundraising appeal. Tell stories, engage people, share the mission that they already care about. They wouldn't subscribe to you. They wouldn't donate to you. They wouldn't follow you if they didn't care about the mission that you're doing.
Yeah.
And they'll respond.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair that you're not giving people the opportunity to give if they want to. Even if it's a major donor, I know a lot of people want to exclude their major donors from year-end giving, and I can understand that. Everyone is very particular about, how they communicate with their donors, but let's give them the opportunity to say no, thank you. Like, what's the worst that could happen? They're just going to say, "Oh, I received this email." And you can, to add to that point, you can personalize the email saying, "Thank you so much for your generosity this year. If you feel like, you want to make a year-end gift to this campaign, here's the opportunity to do that. If not, thanks anyways." Give them the opportunity, because you might be leaving some money on the table.
I feel like I could keep on this rant for hours, but I'm gonna spare everyone the rest of my soapbox and pivot us a little bit, Caitlin, because email is so critical, and we spent a lot of time talking about email. But there's a best friend to email that we haven't talked about yet that makes or breaks the success of an email campaign, and that is your donation experience, because you can't convert a gift from email if you don't have a donation experience. And you could tell the best email, the best story, design, write, deliver the best email, But if your giving experience isn't up to snuff, it's going to fall flat. So can you talk about specifically with the mind of that donor journey from email to giving experience, what makes a good donation experience?
A good donation experience has to be easy, simple. It has to be mobile friendly. I mean, 50% of people are looking at email on their phones, or maybe even more than that now. I haven't looked at that statistic recently, but test it on your phone. See how easy it is to fill out things on your phone. Don't ask for repetitive information. So if someone's already given you this information once, is there a way that you can do an auto login or a pre-fill of the form so that it's already filled out and all they have to do is like fill in their credit card information? Better yet, if they've already given once, is there a way to just have their credit card information already on file and it's like a one-click donate? Just make it easy. Make it easy for people. That's all. I mean, that's all I have to say. Make sure that the emails that you're sending and the campaign messaging and branding matches where you're sending people to, because they can get very confused if you're showing them one picture of, this, and then they get to the donation form and it's something else. So make sure that that's a very simple thing, but a lot of people kind of miss the mark on that. So just make sure that you have a unique donation page that matches with the campaign, and any of the content that you're using on email and social should really match up with the form.
I completely agree. And I think you hit it so simply, is that a good donation experience is an easy donation experience. And two, there's that cohesive through line between what motivates the action and what converts the action. You want an easy, cohesive experience from start to finish. One last question in here on that is, what is a really, really cool email plus donation experience you've used, a strategy you employ, or something that you've seen done?
One of my favorite things to do is abandoned cart emails or abandoned donation emails, where you can actually put a tracking link on anybody who clicked an email, a donate button, but didn't actually make a donation. So you can follow up with an email series like, you forgot to make this donation, or it's similar to, if you add something to your cart when you're shopping, and then all of a sudden you get an email, it's like, you still have these items in your cart, because you never know where someone is when they're reading that email. So like if I'm giving my kids a bath and I have a second and I read an email and then I click donate and then someone screams for me and I can't complete the donation, I would love to be reminded tomorrow when I'm at my computer, which is a better, time for me to do that. And you can really do that with anything. So those are really great automation options to do. And then any sort of like pop-up boxes on the donation form, you forgot to hit donate, because some people will fill in the form and they'll forget to click the button. So pop-ups are great as well.
If you'll let me, I'll add one more.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a feature we're starting to tease out at Fundraise that I'm really excited for, and it's combining the combination of donor data and donor history with email call to action with giving experience, where you can customize an ask directly within an email and then have that ask flow directly to the giving experience. So, hey, Caitlin, thank you so much. Like, we know you care about our cause. If you could give $50 right now, you're gonna help feed 150 people tonight. And would you give? And you can have an ask array within an email, and all the ask arrays are custom to your giving history. And then you click on that, and it takes you right to a giving form with that ask amount pre-selected for you. So it's that dream of this of the one-to-one personalized communication and experience, but at scale. And that's really where I see modern technology, modern platform, modern tools combining with tried and true fundraising strategies to accelerate the growth of organizations everywhere.
Yes, I love that. I can't wait to hear more about it when it rolls out.
I promise you will be first on our list when we get to do a product demo of it. It's going to be it's pretty exciting.
That's so exciting.
So Caitlin, with that, we have covered so much ground. We're pushing up on time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your insight, sharing your experience. I am confident that anyone who's listening to this is like, I got to go follow Caitlin. I need to learn more from her. Where can our listeners engage with you and learn more about what you do and learn more from you?
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn, or I have an email list. So if you find me on LinkedIn or on CaitlinBond.com, you can sign up for my email list, and I send out weekly tips about email, nonprofit email marketing, and inspiration. So I would love to connect with anybody that wants to learn more about email.
Awesome. Caitlin, thank you again so much for your time today. Good luck this giving season. I know you've got a lot of campaigns, a lot of irons in the fire. Good luck to you. Good luck to your clients. Thank you for taking time out to sit down and talk with us.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit. This podcast is brought to you by your friends at Fundraise, nonprofit fundraising software built for nonprofit people by nonprofit people. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can find me on LinkedIn or text me at 714-717-2474. And don't forget to get your next episode the second it hits the internets. Find us on your favorite podcast streaming service, hit that follow button, and leave us a review to help us reach more nonprofit people like you. See you next time.